Live with CDP, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast live on YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, and on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and Anchor FM. Now here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 52 of Live with CDP Sports Talk, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership, 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Please check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles. And also, guys, you can pre-order your all-electric Silverado or your all-electric Cadillac Lyric as well. Give them a call at 519-824-0210 and tell them Chris Palme, aka CDP, sent you as well. And just also to let you guys know, the service and parts department is now open at Barry Cullen on Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Again, Barry Cullen's Chevrolet's official sponsor of Live with CDP Sports Talk. All right, guys, I'm looking forward to my guest today. This is his second appearance. His name is Bud Bailey. He's a former longtime copy editor, columnist with the Buffalo News, and now he's a columnist with the Buffalo Sports page. He's also written a number of books, including The Rayzor's Edge. And I'm going to bring Bud Bailey on, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Bills, the Sabres, and maybe a little bit about the Bandits, and maybe what's going on weather-wise in Buffalo right now. Good afternoon, Bud. How are you doing?
I'm good. Could you call Barry Cullen Chevrolet and send some four-wheel drive vehicles down here? I'm sure we could sell them.
I guess I could. I definitely could. Yeah, I finally got myself a sponsor a couple of months ago, and Barry Cullen actually played hockey in the 60s for the Leafs. He played played for the Leafs and Red Wings, and his son Mark is now in charge of the dealership, but there's a hockey connection with that dealership.
It's Canada. There's always a hockey connection.
Definitely. I was going to say, and I guess the NFL made the right decision moving the Bills-Browns game to Ford Field Sunday.
Yeah, there are 36 inches of snow on the ground in Orchard Park as we speak, and it's supposed to snow some more during the day. And at this point, logistically, yeah, you could probably get the teams there, and that's about it. But is it worth it? Probably not. I think it's a much safer decision to give everybody time to clean up and get on with their lives, and they can move the teams over to Detroit and play there, and everyone can sit home and let the snowplows do their work while everyone's inside watching on TV. So under the circumstances, I think was the best decision.
One of my friends out in San Diego, he used to be a broadcaster. He wanted me to ask you this, Bud. Obviously, the Bills are getting a new stadium, but with this snow coming down, don't you think he wants to know if you think maybe they should have spent the extra money and had a roof put on the stadium?
I do. I guess this week is kind of an example in part of why. My feeling was that the Bills were leaving money on the table by going the cheap route. Last year at a couple of January games, the place was really about half full. The parking lots were surprisingly empty, and they were to clinch a playoff spot and to clinch the division title those two games. And for all the talk about how hardy fans were, they seemed to enjoy, in many cases, sitting home on television and watching it, even though they've paid for the tickets. Now, admittedly, the Bills still get that ticket money, but people aren't spending money on parking and souvenirs and food and all those other things, and they're losing out on that. So I didn't see the wisdom in going, at least ask. I thought the team should have asked for a dome, let me put it that way. And the negotiations seemed awfully simple from a distance, in which the Bills said, we want things done reasonably cheaply, 10,000 fewer seats than before, and we'd be happy with that. And I think the state government said, well, gee, this will be easy. Well, it's usually a 60-40 split, and these things go. And if we can save a couple $100 million this way, fine. So if that's what you want, you can have it. But a dome makes a lot more sense for an all-winter sport if you can work the financing. I know these things are expensive and the return isn't great, but boy, I would think a dome stadium would help on maintenance, keeping the elements more outside, and having cold weather and temperature inside the stadium, I think only speeds up wear and tear, and you might have to get a new one that much faster. So I don't know if in the long run it's been a great idea, but I guess a new stadium is better than no new stadium. That place has served the Bills well over the years, and it'll be up in a few years. So kind of looking forward to seeing what it all looks like.
With the dome stadium, you could have more than 10 events a year as well. Obviously, the weather in Buffalo is only bad for a couple of months of the year, but having a roof over that stadium would give you more concerts, more events in there as well.
I don't know how many that number is, Chris, and I guess that's the sticking point. How many events do you need a crowd of more than 18,000, which is what the KeyBank Center holds, the hockey rink and so forth? How many shows there are that are going to need that sort of facility? U2 and Billy Joel and Bruce Springsteen don't come to town every year, let alone every month. And it's a fair question to ask, how much is a dome needed in that sense? But on the other hand, if the football team is the primary tenant, I would think you would certainly want that. You'd increase your season tickets because you're not going to have to worry about it. Weather when you go in, just getting there, if you can do that. And in the extreme cases, they just have moved the games the last couple of years. So yeah, it would certainly be nice, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And I guess we have to embrace the practicalities and move on.
I have to ask you this, Bud. With the game being moved to Ford Field, obviously some people are going to try to get to Detroit by flying or whatever. But are they going to refund the season ticket holders and people who bought tickets for the game Sunday at Orchard Park? Okay.
Yes, there are all sorts of instructions. Ticket buying is complicated, as you know, Chris, because of online sale, and there's all sorts of outlets and secondhand outlets and all that. And I'll leave it to better minds to sort all of that out. But there will be refunds for everyone concerned.
And I was just reading up. This is the second time they've had to go to Detroit, 2014 as well. Now, I was going to ask you, Bud, how much is this change going to affect the Bills in preparing for the Browns on Sunday? Or you don't think it'll affect them that much?
I can't imagine it's that much. I mean, they're having a virtual practice, if that makes sense at all. Today, they're not going in trying to fight 3 feet of snow to go to the football field so they can run around inside. It's mid-season. They're all in shape, and I think they can go over what they need to. And it is Friday, so usually Wednesday, Thursday are the big days. If anything, there's been a report that a lot of the guys are sick with a flu, and if nothing else, they'll get the day off to rest in bed and get better. So when they fly out tomorrow, maybe they'll be feeling a little better, and this will help them. So I guess in that sense, those 8 or 9 players that are sick are probably looking forward to the extra day to stay home.
And right now, this team is facing a little bit of adversity. Can I get your thoughts, Bud, on this 2022 Buffalo Bills team so far?
Well, obviously the last few games have not been great. They looked good against the Packers. The Jets, the offense really wasn't playing that well, but it's still a tie game, and the Jets just ran it down for the final drive to kick the winning field goal, and you kind of salute them. And this past week was as silly a game as I've ever seen. The game of the Vikings was just back and forth and unbelievable, and the offense played pretty well. It gets 30 points, but Josh Allen forced a couple passes into the end zone that were picked off, and those were ultimately killers. So it was kind of a good news, bad news situation. To me, the Bills have been really hit hard by injuries, and the biggest area of concern is the defensive backfield to me. They're missing 3 guys who are probably the starters in White, Poyer, and Hyde, and arguably their 3 best defensive backs. And it's hard to keep NFL teams out of the end zone when your secondary is that banged up. So they've got to get a couple of those guys back and fairly soon and playing at a high level. But But again, nobody goes 17-0 in the NFL. It's just too tough. And I think you can expect some flat spots. We'll just have to see how they react to this little one. And Cleveland seems tailor-made to get everybody's confidence back up. The Browns haven't been playing well. So it's with Cleveland and Detroit coming up both in Detroit, oddly enough. They're in a good spot to try to get everything together and move forward from here.
They should be both wins. Now, I was going to ask you about Bud. Is there any help on the way for the secondary in returns of guys coming back, like Trey White?
Well, White's been activated, but he didn't
Okay.
play Minnesota, and everybody kept looking out in the field waiting for him to come out, but never did set foot on the field. One of the guys is out. One of the safeties is out for the season. I think it's Hyde. Poyer is kind of week to week, so we'll see what happens there. But if White can come back on anything to the form where he was, it would obviously be a huge help because he was an all-pro defender when healthy, and obviously blew out the Achilles or whatever it was last year.
What are your thoughts on AJ Klein? That Bill's picking him up today, the linebacker.
News to me. I didn't see that on Twitter, but he knows the system and he's been around the block a while, so I guess it can't help. Whether he's a key factor of the defense, I'm not prepared to say that, but it's at least an experienced body.
And as you know, I'm an Eagles fan, and I'm just happy we ended up picking a couple guys up for our defensive line because one guy, Davis, is banged up, and Washington really ran the ball down our throats. Or I should say our throats, but the Eagles' throats on Monday night. And I think that loss is going to be a wake-up call for the Eagles as well.
Well, they've had a surprising season. I haven't seen a whole lot of them, to be honest, but they look like the class of the NFC, which is kind of floating around. Minnesota was better than I thought it was. Obviously, the record has been great, and the Vikings pulled out one that they probably deserved to lose last week. So wouldn't be surprised to see those two teams playing in the NFC Championship game. But, boy, there's a lot of good teams out there that, you don't want to play necessarily, and you don't know what's going to happen. So I'm not conceding anything at this point. January is a long way off.
Absolutely. And I have the attitude of 1 week, one game at a time. How is the overall feeling from the Buffalo fans right now about this team?
As somebody pointed out, the Bills have had some memorable games and they've lost almost all of them. And I think the Minnesota game stung some people just because all they've got to do is execute 2 snaps in the last minute on the 1-yard line and fall forward, and the game's over. And to somehow get that wrong was kind of a shock. Everything was going so well when the team had the long winning streak, except for the one game in Miami, which was kind of a fluky day. So I don't think it'll take much to get everyone back on the bandwagon. I think the biggest concern is Allen played a little more like the Josh Allen of 2020 and 19 than he did as the Josh Allen of last year. He was just forcing a little bit, and we'll have to see if he can get it straight. He knows what he did. He knows he made some mistakes, and good for him on that. And now it's just a matter of correcting them and taking it from there.
Do you feel personally the loss of offensive coordinator Brian Daboll to the Giants has affected Josh Allen's play a little bit? And what are your thoughts on Ken Dorsey's job or work so far with the Bills?
Boy, that's really hard to tell unless you're in the locker room, and I'm certainly not close to that. So it's hard for me to speculate. But the first 2 months of the season, it didn't look like the Bills had missed a beat. That sort of change is always tough to judge, but clearly Allen and Daboll had a good relationship. Now, Dorsey comes in and he's worked with him before, and I can't imagine it's that much of a change. And Allen was playing so well in those first 2 months of the season that you'd think that it's not going to be a major problem. And the more it goes on, the more comfortable those two will get with each other as the OC and the quarterback. So I don't think it's that much of an issue unless something's working underneath that hasn't been publicized. But it's hard to believe that these guys are all pros and they all have to get along.
Well, being an outsider, being an Eagles fan, my opinion of Josh Allen right now is maybe he's doing a little bit too much. And maybe if they can get more of the running game going with Singletary and I guess Hines from the Colts, that might take a little bit of pressure off of him.
Yeah, they haven't stuck to the running game too much. Singletary had some good moments early in the Vikings game, and then they got away from it. I guess the biggest concern from a Bills fan is it seems like if it's 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2, the Bills don't have a whole lot of confidence that then they get that extra yard or two. So that's got to be worked out, whether they have to get at it more often and test it and figure out what works and go from there. That remains to be seen. But it is a little puzzling why they've just been so pass oriented, especially at crunch time, when the running game has had a few good moments.
Before I get into the next question, but I wanted to ask you this because you've covered the NFL for a long time. All I'm hearing now
Dark
is
ages, yeah.
Sorry?
In the dark ages.
Okay, well, I've been around since the 70s too.
93.
I'm hearing people saying that this turf, there's the media, the turf is bad and everything. But I was around back in the 70s and 80s with that AstroTurf, that concrete stuff. To me, this field turf is, I think, I've been on it. It feels safer than the artificial carpet they used in the 70s and 80s.
I'll tell you a funny story about that, Chris. Back when I was covering games, the media would go down to the locker room and do interviews at one end of the field. In order to get back to the press box, we were allowed to walk on the field to the 50-yard line and then climb the stairs straight up to the press box. And I forget what year it was or whatever, but clearly the artificial surface had not been replaced in a while. And I was walking along it, and the thought struck me that it was like playing on a dining room floor with that sort of carpet on it, with maybe a concrete underneath instead of just wood. And it's like, how can anybody get up the next morning after playing football on this stuff? And I've been on the field a little bit since then. In fact, I was on the field before the game for the Packers game, and it's clearly a much more forgiving surface than it was back then. So I can't believe that anybody wants to go back to the good old days of the 80s with a dining room carpet on the field. So, and both teams are playing on it, and it's always going to be a little, less forgiving, I should say, than the grass, the natural surface. But that's the game today, and you got to live with it.
Is this new stadium going to have grass in it? Or is it going to be field turf?
There's no way it'll be just grass.
No chance. Okay, I had to ask.
Not here. TV would not allow it.
Okay, just had to ask you about that because there's a debate on Twitter about all my team's injuries are all because of the field turf and all that, but I still think the field turf is safer than the AstroTurf. And a lot of these people I'm talking to, I guess, weren't around in the 70s and 80s and even 90s.
And you've got guys 320 pounds running around creating collisions every play. It's almost surprising there aren't more injuries because these guys are fast and strong and hit like mad, and it's just a tremendous toll that sort of thing takes on players' bodies. It's not for the faint of heart, and you almost expect more injuries than there are. It's difficult.
This leads to my next question. Bud, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Can the Bills turn their season around, and do you still feel that this team could be a Super Bowl contender?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's November 18th as we speak. Teams do it all the time. Look at the Rams last year. They got hot at the right time, and you can go on countless examples. The 17-week season is so long and difficult that it's really hard to maintain momentum, especially in a pretty balanced league. And you're almost expected to get through these things. The Bills probably did a little better than I thought they would early in the season. They had an extremely tough schedule through the bye week at the end of October and lost one game. That's probably a game or two better than you thought they'd do. And now, who would have thought the Jets would be so much better? They're playing so well. And the Vikings, who had them for 8-1 and leading the division handily over the Packers and so forth. The Bills will be fine, barring more injuries to the secondary or other key things. And obviously, these days, if your starting quarterback goes down with an injury, you're in deep, deep trouble. But the Bills should be a contender. It's just a matter of can they win enough games the rest of the way to get a high seed and make sure the road to the Super Bowl goes through Orchard Park. Now the road is rather filled with snow. It's just a matter of plowing it now. But once they get some things worked out, I think they certainly can be a contender. That's not to say there are lead pipe sins to get there, because there's no such thing.
The biggest surprises in NFL right now, Bud, you mentioned the Jets, the Giants, and the Vikings. In my opinion, those are the three biggest surprises.
Yeah, I had to go along with that. Miami has come on maybe even a little faster. They had that hiccup with the quarterback Tua went down with the injury, and that set them back a little bit. But they've been playing well lately, and they obviously got Chubb in the deal from Denver, and he's an all-pro player that goes on that unit. So the Bills once probably had thoughts of dominating the AFC East, and you can throw that out the window now, because all three of the other teams in that division are playing well. We'll throw in the Patriots, who you thought would have been still rebuilding a bit, but Bill Belichick seems to know what he's doing. I guess he has a pretty good track record as these things go.
AFC East right now, in your opinion, the best division in football, or the NFC East? I think it's either one of those divisions.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I'd probably lean a little to the AFC East right now, but I could be biased because I see them. But the Giants have been better than I thought, and Dallas is pretty good, and Washington is capable of some surprises. So, but still, I think everybody's 500 or better in the AFC East. So that's a pretty good indication. We'll have to see how once you make those judgments at the end of the year, once all the scheduling evens out.
When was the last time you remember the AFC East being this competitive with all four teams? It's been a while.
I'd have to look that up. That's one for the history books. But pretty obviously, it's been New England and nobody for so long. And I think I forget the year, but someone pulled out a stat that this is the latest the AFC East has been 500 or better since blank. And I don't think it was in this century. I could be wrong. So it's kind of funny because it was just so unexpected, because we're used to, if nothing else, the Jets stinking. And finally, they've managed to get their act together, and they've got like 15 first-round draft choices on the roster, and are doing well.
I believe the Jets are playing the Patriots this weekend too, I believe.
Well, somebody's got to lose on that, right?
I was going to say, yeah. Definitely. Hey, before we get on to a couple of Sabres questions, I had to get your thoughts on this, since he's a former Bills quarterback and well-known in the NFL. What's your thoughts on the firing of head coach Frank Wright with the Indianapolis Colts, and them replacing him with Jeff Saturday, who has no coaching experience?
Boy, I certainly appreciate the feelings of people like Bill Cowher and others in the coaching fraternity who were very upset over Saturday's hiring. I mean, Reich has been dealt a tough hand, and I think the Colts have had a new number one quarterback every year for the last 5 years or something like that, and you can't win that way. They've just had a revolving door quarterback, and you need a guy you can count on as the base of operations, and Frank hasn't had that. And plus, midseason football coaching changes usually don't work because you can't do much. You have to install your system as a new coach. And but for Saturday to come in, I know he's very well regarded on a personal level by everyone, but he's never coached in the college or pro level, and to just give him the job, I think I'd have to agree with people that say that's kind of insulting to everyone who has wanted to be an NFL coach, would have loved the opportunity to do it, and served a long apprenticeship to do it, and then get overlooked in this circumstance. I'm sure there's some great coaches on the Colts staff who fit that description and were overlooked. I know Reggie Wayne the other day said something like, if someone asked him, would he have taken over the interim coaching job, and I think he said an expletive and then said yes. He would have loved even just a chance to see what it's like to be a head coach and try to turn things around as best he could under difficult circumstances. So I'm not sure it was wise, but I'm not the owner, so that's why he makes the decision. He owns the team, Irsay.
Now, is there a policy where the NFL, when you are hiring a head coach, you have to go through a coaching search, or can owners just do what the Colts owner, Jim Irsay, did and just pick Jeff Saturday right away?
Well, there are guidelines in the off season where you have to talk to a minority candidate, the Rooney Rule, but I don't know if that applies to this sort of circumstance because there's so little time to put out a as my phone rings.
No worries.
Someone will get it. So I don't know if it applies there.
Okay.
Let me just.
Yeah, bear with me. Yep, no worries. Bear with me, guys. Okay. We were just talking to Bud. Hey, before we get on to the Sabres, Josh McDaniels, do you feel he'll last the season with the Raiders, or do you feel he's going to be on the hot seat very, very soon?
Well, the Raiders are a major disappointment this year, but I would never try to predict a midseason firing for anyone because I don't think it's rational. I think you're better off just starting over if you're that upset with someone's coaching at the end of the season and give them a year and find out what happens. So I can't say I'd be surprised, but we've got a couple months left. Are you going anywhere either way? Probably not. So unless there's an obvious interim choice and the situation becomes so bad, which I guess Derek Carr kind of hinted that they had some problems there. They have to find out what the problem is and see if that's needs to be done right away.
And there's one other big disappointment I wanted to talk to you about quickly, and then we'll get to the Sabres, is the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. I'm already hearing people wanting Jordan Love in, but I do not see that happening until maybe the 17th game of the season, and they're officially out.
Yeah, they've had their problems. Aaron has seemed to have aged this year a little bit. The Packers picked him as the quarterback when they signed him to the extension, and so that's their business, and they made the decision, and they have to live with it. I don't know if you can turn the page on Rodgers under these circumstances that quickly. Obviously, Dante Adams traded to the Raiders, and their passing game hasn't been good. In fact, it's been very short passing. The long distance part of it, the old Raider stretch the field philosophy, really hasn't been in focus because Rodgers hasn't really had time to find receivers and wait them out to get complete routes. So I don't know. I know they've had an incredible run of success between Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. I don't think they've had to look for their next quarterback for 25, 30 years, whatever the date is since Favre came in. And now we have to see how they can transition and when from Rodgers to Love in the future, when that comes, whether it's this year or next year or whatever. But it sure seems like they're headed towards that sort of move.
Definitely. And we're going to just get on to the Sabres now. The Sabres got off to such a good start. Everybody was optimistic in that. What has happened the last 7 games? And just get your thoughts on this 2022-23 Sabres team so far.
I think 2 points come to mind. One, the Sabres, when they were hot, weren't playing anybody. And 2, received great goaltending. And the goaltending was really more than you could expect, and you had to expect it to come back to earth, and it really did. And the degree of difficulty in the schedule has improved drastically. Well, suddenly everybody the Sabres seem to be playing are on a 5-game winning streak or something like that, and that happens. It's a long season, but overall, they're probably a little bit below where they wanted to be after the slow start. But this is a young team. I don't think anybody was counting on them to be the playoffs. And yeah, some hopes were dashed from the early going, but Sabres fans know all about that. A few years ago, they won like 9 of their first 10 or something like that and still missed the playoffs, which isn't easy. So I think they'll be fine. There's still a question about their goaltending long term. Whether, obviously Anderson's 41, and we don't know if Comrie's a full-time goalie yet. He's got a chance to be good, but they're young goalies that are either on the farm or in college now, or the ultimate answer. I don't think the Sabres will be a real contender until they get that figured out, and that's got to be in the future. But for the moment, you're going to have these little 7-game hiccups or whatever. It's not unusual, and we'll just see how they respond to it later on. It's just a matter of picking up a couple wins here and there, and I think they'll be back to normal, which is a better team than last year, but not a playoff team.
I gotta ask you this as well, Bud. There's been talk about a lot around here, especially. I guess the Leaf fans don't like this setup. Do you think the NHL will go back to that 1 versus 8 seed, or do you think what they have now is going to stay in place for a while? In your opinion?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure about how balanced the schedule is. If you could guarantee me a balanced schedule so everybody plays the teams in your conference the same number of times, so it's essentially one big conference in terms of the schedule. That way you could compare records in the same conference, as opposed to a team that plays extra games versus your own division and ignores the division, because that becomes uneven and gives an advantage one way or another to certain teams. So if that could be worked out, maybe you could go 1-2 with the division winners and then have 6 wild cards or something. That might ultimately be a fairer system, but I would say to me, you get in the playoffs, you take your chances. You're going to play somebody good, and you're going to have to beat everybody that's worth beating. So if you're good enough, you do it. Yeah, it's a small home ice advantage in Game 7 if it comes to that, but the good teams manage to figure it out, and hockey has more upsets in the playoffs than basketball counterparts by far. So I think that sort of uncertainty probably handles things pretty well. So I don't think you blame the system.
What's the overall mood of the Sabre fans in the Buffalo area right now with this team?
Oh, they're a little impatient at the moment. A losing streak will do that, but it's hard to judge. They've started to come back a bit. The attendance seems to be going in the right direction in terms of their play. So I don't think anybody who is not a Twitter crank thinks. I think anyone that's not a Twitter crank is probably pretty optimistic that the team is headed in the right direction right now. I think the off-season moves they made in the last, and even the season moves before that, I think have put the team on a decent track. I think Kevin Adams knows what he's doing and wants to do, and has a plan, and is trying his best to implement it. And that's all he can do. I mean, Dahlin this year has taken several big steps forward. He looks like an all-star. Owen Power is his first full rookie year. Rookie defensemen are going to make mistakes, but Powers just can be a force at 6'6". He's going to be a heck of a player someday. It's just not now, but he's going to be good, and so on down the line. So they need somebody, some guys to fill in. Thompson has been a revelation as a center, which was kind of a desperation move, but scored something like 37, 38 goals last year, and he's still playing well this year. He seems to have found his niche. So you have to get lucky on guys like that, but the Sabres did there, and a couple of more guys who can develop, and I think everything will be fine. But right now isn't the great time to ask how the Sabres fans are, because they're turning on the TV and, another loss. Okay, same old Sabres. And I don't think that's accurate.
I've been hearing talk too, and obviously I don't agree with this either. But a few Sabre fans I know, they want Don Granato fired. But what is the point of firing him now? Who's going to replace him? And what difference is it going to make? To me, I'm a fan of Granato, and I think you can't keep just firing your coaches every 2 years, 3 years.
And he got the Sabres to around 500 last year for the second half of the season, and seems to be well liked, and the players responded to him then. So coaching changes are easy, but they're also very disruptive, and I don't make those decisions lightly, unless, again, as I talked about in football, there's a definite reason that the coach is the problem, and it's hard to believe Don Granato has gotten stupid or controversial or unlikable or any other word you can come out in this short a time. He's still the same coach, and it's just a matter of getting through this little stretch. I think if the Sabres beat Toronto and Montreal coming up, I think that's their schedule in the near future. Everyone will go, oh, okay.
Everything will be good again. Yes.
We'll be all right.
All right. I just wanted to talk to you about the Sabres. And yeah, you're right. Tage Thompson, Dahlin, Alex Tuck, Skinner, and Powell. And I still think they made the right decision moving from Eichel to the Vegas last year for this organization. I think it was the best thing that could have happened to them.
Yeah, I know that Eichel was a talent, but he wasn't happy there. And I have to applaud Kevin Adams for saying, I'm going to look around and see who wants to be here. And I think for Eichel and Reinhardt and Ristolainen and those guys, I think they kind of get caught up in the tank and the losing. It's my personal belief that when the Sabres tanked to try to get McDavid and missed by one, that the tank ruined everything it touched, and it touched almost everyone. The general manager's gone, the coach is well gone. Eichel is now gone. Some of the guys who tried to come out of that era as part of the rebuilding program are gone. It was just didn't turn out well, and Adams was smart to turn the page and get players he wanted and that wanted to be here. And I think it's going to take some time because they were pretty low, but they've made some progress. They've got some pretty good young players, and it's up to them to develop them and turn them into solid NHL players.
Have you been able to go down to the KeyBank Center for a game or two so far? And how's the attendance been like if you've been to a game or two?
Been up and down. I think they had about 13. I think they announced 13 or 14,000 for a Blackhawks game on a Saturday night. But it was the night before the Packers game, so it was a big weekend. They had a sellout recently. Some nights are less. Like a Monday night against Arizona or whatever that was. You're obviously not going to fill the building. But there's some signs that things are getting a little better. And one thing I've learned, Chris, is that when the team does well, people don't say, oh, I think I'll go to the next home game. No, they look at the schedule and say, oh, Tampa Bay's in town on December 6th. Let's get tickets. So there's a delayed reaction to good news, and that also affects the wrong way. Right now, nobody is looking at the Sabres and saying, I can't wait to see them. When's the next time we can fit it into our schedule? So I would assume attendance will be up when this year is over. It will take some bumps along the way, but that always happens.
Any more talk about renovations to the KeyBank Center right now, or they've kind of been put on hold until the Bills stadium?
Yeah, that hasn't come up, and I would think that after, I'll give you 1.2 billion or whatever the number was, reasons why their priorities are about the new stadium in Orchard Park. So even though it could use a little facelift, because it's the Sabres have played more games in the KeyBank Center or been in longer, I should say, have been in KeyBank Center longer than they were in Memorial Auditorium now.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah, because the Sabres were there 70 to 96, and now it's 96 to 2022 and soon 2023. Now they missed some games because of the lockout that one year, so number of games are probably pretty close, and the odd may have difference, but that will change shortly. But these buildings don't last forever, and the odd came pretty close at 56 years since it was built in 1940, but it went through a major renovation in 1970 and 71 with the extra balcony. So I think it does need some sprucing up, and I'm sure there's going to be a good sized bill when that comes, but that's to be negotiated.
I guess I'm going to just get to a little bit about the Buffalo Bandits. Do you have a few more minutes, Bud, to talk a little bit about? Yeah. Okay, no problem. Can I just get your thoughts on the 2022 NL Finals loss to Colorado?
Wow. I'm laughing just because I asked Steve Dietrich about that, the Bandits general manager, their first weekend of practice, and I said, I'm sure you're still smarting about it because I know you're a sore loser about these things. And when I asked him about the finals back in June, he said, "Heck, I'm still upset about the 2006 final we lost." So you can imagine how I feel about this one. The toughest part is you get so close. I mean, they were tied going in the fourth period in the deciding game of the finals, and Colorado got the extra goals and pulled out the win. And now you have to start over, and 2 seasons are never the same. But the Bandits looked like the best team in the league. They had some very close calls in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. We got through them. Looked great in the first game, lost the second game, and the third was sitting there and they couldn't pick it up. And that's tough to live with. But now they start over with a slightly different cast as usual because no 2 seasons are the same. Connor Fields goes off in the expansion draft and winds up at Rochester. Chase Frazier's recovering from some sort of surgical procedure and is going to be out a while. Nobody's saying how much. You've got a goaltender who's around 40, closing in on 40 if he's not there now. You wonder, even though he's the best goalie I've ever seen and is generally acknowledged as the best goalie in league history, how long can he stay at a high level? He may be ageless, he may not be. John Tavares played into his 40s pretty well. Is Matt this type of player? I think the Bandits are obviously counting on him to be that guy because he had a very good year last year. So they've probably got as good a chance as anybody going forward. Toronto looks good and has made some good additions in the offseason. And the Rock scored a goal that would have tied it up literally a split second late in game 2 of the playoffs last time. That would have extended the series a bit. And the Bandits wound up hanging on to advance. So it's a very thin margin, and everything has to go right for the Bandits to maintain that margin over the Rock and the rest of the league if it hopes to get back in a position to play for the championship this year.
From what I've been reading, it looks like generally most of the main core are going to be back. So this team should be very strong again this year.
Yeah, I would think so. Once Dane Smith gets his contract worked out, and as I always say in such circumstances, where's he going to go? There's not much movement allowed in free agency, especially to younger players. He'll be back. He wants to be here. It's just putting the decimal point in the right place and a few numbers and so on. So I think that'll be fine. But the defense is pretty much as is and is a good unit. Steve Priolo is recovering from a bit of an injury, but he should be back, if not at the start of the season, very early in it. So they should be fine. They'll be a contender, and I guess that's all we ask for, that they have a chance.
And I'm planning on being at the home opener on December 3rd, but I'm going to just wait a little bit closer to that date to see how the weather is in Buffalo.
Well, we should be fine.
Knowing my luck, it'll be 50 degrees that day.
Yeah, it'll be 40s this week, and it better be, because I'm running in a Thanksgiving Day race called the Turkey Trot, and I don't really want to go through 12 inches of snow, but I think it'll be pretty much gone off the roads by Monday or Tuesday.
Definitely. And I guess that's pretty well it about the Bandits. Like I said, they've got a good core in place. And like I said, I'm looking forward to the start of the NL. Thoughts quickly on the Toronto Rock. I don't know if you've heard about them, but the city of Hamilton's decided to kick the Rock and the Bulldogs out of the arena for 2 years instead of letting them play in the arena during the renovations for the First Ontario Center.
I did hear about that, and I read an article about what Toronto's options were, and they don't sound too appealing. There's various places in the area that I guess they could go to, but it sounds like they're going to pay a financial price no matter what they do. So I guess, welcome to the joys of sports ownership. These things happen every so often, but could they go back to Toronto? I guess so. Is it Rico? I'm not Coliseum. I'm not. It might have a new name by now.
Coca-Cola Coliseum.
Okay. I guess they could go up there if they can work out the dates, although
the Marlies have first priority.
And do they go to Kitchener? It's hard to picture that. on a short-term basis, but you gotta do what you gotta do. So
Yeah, that arena holds about 7,200 people, and it would be great for me if they did come to Kitchener as well, because that's only like 15-minute drive for me.
I've been to the Kitchener Arena for
Okay.
a Sabres preseason game, and
Yeah.
you walk into that place, or I walked in and just thought, what a great hockey barn. When you hear the phrase hockey barn,
Yeah.
no frills, walls that look solid, and fans inside that just love hockey and warm. And I said, this is Canadian junior hockey to me, and so it was really nice to see a game there, and plus I think it was the Sabres Leafs or something at the time, or a form of the Sabres and Leafs in preseason, and I enjoyed the trip immensely.
Before I let you go, Bud, are you working on any more books? And what's your latest column you're working on with the Buffalo Sports page? Are you still active with them?
Yeah, I'm doing a little bit, although I haven't done the Sabres, but I just did a Bandit story. I interviewed John Tavares and Steve Dietrich at length, and they were good as usual. Books, I've got a book on the old Buffalo Bandits, the NBA from 1970 to 78. That will be out sometime next fall, and we're working on a Bills historical timeline book, kind of a coffee table approach, that should be out at some point next year. And in fact, I wrote up it's a series of kind of like This Day in Bills history, except at some length. And the other day I wrote up the Bills Vikings game to make sure that was included, because I don't know if anyone's ever seen a game like that before. So those will be out next year, and hopefully so will This Day in Cleveland sports history, which has been sitting around a while with some problems with photos, but hopefully that will be out next year as well. So if you want to read some of me next year, you're in luck, because you may be deluged with material.
Definitely. And I missed that Bills Vikings game because I was at the CFL game in Toronto last Sunday. I got to ask you this, Bud. Anyways, Grey Cup this week. Toronto, Winnipeg. Winnipeg's trying to three-peat. Argonauts are trying to win their 18th Grey Cup. What's your pick? Quick pick on that.
I don't have a pick.
Okay.
I haven't watched the CFL game all year, so I would only anger fans of the other team by saying so. But I've made a trip to a couple of CFL games in Hamilton and had fun. So no bias here. It's competitive, good football, and that's what you want. But defending champions are usually hard to beat, aren't they?
Absolutely. And Winnipeg is trying to be the first CFL team to win 3 in a row since the 78 to 82 Eskimos, led by Warren Moon, won 5 in a row, which I don't think you'll ever see in sports again. 5 championships in a row.
It's difficult. I assure you that. I was just thinking about the Bills teams that played in 4 straight Super Bowls from 91 to 94, and I'm not sure we'll ever see that again. And to win 5 is even in a league that's 9 or 10 teams or whatever the number is, it's still quite an achievement.
And the CFL to me is a lot like the Lacrosse League. They've been really great with my podcast, and the players are really accessible. And it's just, I've made a lot of connections with that league as well. And Sunday, I'll be watching about 12 and a half hours of football between the Grey Cup and the Eagles game. And I'll try to watch some of the Bills game too.
Yeah, I may go up to the University of Buffalo is playing, was supposed to play tomorrow. That game has been postponed. They're going to see if they can play it Sunday. And I had asked to cover the Saturday game and say, well, we'll see how the conditions are if I can get out of my driveway on Sunday. So, and see if they play the game. So we'll wait and see.
You have a snowblower, or do you do the old-fashioned shoveling?
At this age, snowblowers are a blessing.
I was going to say they'd probably be in demand right now in the area.
Yes.
Definitely. We've only had a little bit of snow, but you guys, like I said, Buffalo always gets it. Even Toronto doesn't even get as much snow as they should, being off the lake. I guess it's just being at the right location for that. I have to learn all this stuff with the weather stuff.
Yeah, the winds are usually northwest to west, and that means they blow across the warm water, because the water is about 53 right now, pick up moisture, and then hit land, which is colder, and just dump it. There's only 2 places in the world, I believe, that have lake effect storms, and that's the Great Lakes and then the Caspian Sea in Asia. So the Great Lakes have their advantages in terms of recreation and clean water and all that. But today, well, the people in the south towns of the Buffalo area aren't so happy with it.
because I was hoping to come down to your area next week to take a family member Christmas shopping, hopefully by Wednesday. So I'm going to cross my fingers the weather's better by Wednesday in that area.
Well, I'll do my best. Should be okay.
Final score for the Bills-Browns game on Sunday before I let you go.
I hate if I could do predictions, I'd play the lottery, but I smell something like 27-10.
You know what? I agree with that, and I think being in a dome stadium works to Buffalo's advantage as well.
It might. Yeah, that's probably fair, and I'm kind of waiting to see Watson come back for Cleveland at some point to see what sort of effect he is and how effective he is. You know, he's obviously had a long layoff and gone through a series of ahem problems, and how he's going to be received and how he'll react and how he'll play under that. I think those are going to be interesting questions in the second half of the season.
I think Watson has one more week to go, and then he can return.
Yeah, I think he's practicing, right?
Definitely. So, all right, Bud. What I was going to say, thank you for coming on my 217th episode today and talking some Bills, Sabres, and Bandits. And hopefully we'll see you at a Bandits game on December 3rd.
I hope to be there. Weather
Definitely.
permitting.
And they're playing the Albany Firewolves at 7:30 at the Key Bank.
Good tickets still available.
Definitely. I'm just waiting a little bit sooner just to see how the weather is. But I look forward to it, Bud. And thank you so much. And hopefully the snow will be gone by Monday or Tuesday.
Okay. Thank you for having me on.
No problem, Bud. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
You too.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed my podcast today with Bud Bailey, a former longtime columnist with the Buffalo News, and now he's a columnist with the Buffalo Sports page. He's also an author of multiple books, I think over 12 now, and he did do one about Rob Ray called The Rayzor's Edge as well. So check out Bud Bailey on Twitter as well. I believe his Twitter account is at WDX2BB on Twitter. Bud Bailey. And also, guys, he does some work with the Buffalo Sports page. So check out the buffalosportspage.com as well. So I really appreciate Bud coming on again for season 4, episode 52. And looking forward to this weekend with the Eagles game against the Colts, the Bills and Browns at Ford Field, and also the 109th Grey Cup championship game at Mosaic Stadium in Regina, Saskatchewan. 6:30 kickoff on TSN and TSN 1050 on the radio. And the Winnipeg Blue Bombers right now are the 5.5-point favorites as being the back-to-back Grey Cup champions, with head coach Mike O'Shea, the former Argo linebacker, and former Argo quarterback Zach Collaros, taking on their former teammate Andrew Harris with the Argonauts. I am going with the Argonauts to win their 18th Grey Cup in an upset. I have the Argonauts winning 24-21 over Winnipeg. And my friend and my buddy, Curly Gittins Jr., number 19, the great wide receiver from Warford Laurier, who I think should be in the NFL one day. I think he's going to be the MVP of this game as well. So the weather shouldn't be a factor in Regina Sunday. I looked at the weather forecast, guys, and I think in the daytime it's going to be sunny and about -2, and by game time about -8. So it's not going to be balmy there, but I don't believe there's any snow in the forecast for Sunday night in Regina. And I think the winds are going to be about 36 kilometers per hour, but that stadium is also enclosed Mosaic Stadium, so I'm not sure winds will be that much of a factor, but looking forward to it. Like I said, the Argonauts are in their 24th Grey Cup championship, and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are in their 27th. Here's something for Bud, since I've had him on. The last time the Argonauts and Winnipeg played in the Grey Cup, November 25th, 1950, in the Mud Bowl. The Mud Bowl at Old Varsity Stadium in Toronto, where the Argonauts won 13-0. So it's been 72 years since 2 teams in a 9-team league played in a Grey Cup. And if you get a chance, Bud, just Google the Mud Bowl from 1950 at Varsity Stadium. And the Argonauts have played Winnipeg prior to that 6 other times in the Grey Cup, and the Argos are undefeated. The last time the Argonauts lost a Grey Cup, guys, was in 1987 against the Edmonton Eskimos and to Damon Allen, who ended up winning a Grey Cup with the Argos in 2004. Damon Allen is also the younger brother of Marcus Allen, and Damon was also drafted in 1984, the pitcher by the Detroit Tigers. So there's a lot of good stories going on for this Grey Cup on Sunday as well. So I hope everybody can enjoy the college football games on Saturday. Go Michigan, go Blue, and then the NFL games and the Grey Cup game as well. So really looking forward to this matchup again with Toronto Winnipeg, and I'm also looking forward to going down to Buffalo hopefully on Saturday, December 3rd. Bandits take on the Albany Firewolves. You can get your tickets at bandits.com. And it's a great facility, the KeyBank Center. Easy to get to if you're coming across the border from Ontario. It's about, 5-7 minute drive from the Peace Bridge. And National Lacrosse League is starting back up, and looking forward to it. And I expect the Buffalo Bandits to have a great season. Before I wrap this up, guys, I'm also going to show you a little clip of a few CFL games, some of the greatest Grey Cup games in Argos history. Just bear with me.
He has blinding speed. This is Graysley from his 4-yard line. .216 left to play in this opening first quarter, and it is scoreless. Waist down, and he's got him through it. The ball is there. Touchdown for Winnipeg. They've got to get inside the 1 for a first down. The screen. This is Carinci. Touchdown, Toronto. And BC at the Toronto 20. And why not? Oh. From the 31-yard line, Pasaglia puts it up, and it is good. Angelissa. This time it's good. A 43-yard field goal by Hank Alyssa. First and goal from the 3. Barnes, Mither, touchdown. This is the old Hail Mary. It's coming over here. 3 guys on one side. Right, a wall, throwing deep. Looking for Chapdelaine. It's knocked away. And the Argonauts are the champions for 1983.
Anyways, guys, I just wanted to show you some of the games. There was 5 on that video clip, courtesy of the CFL and TSN. But I just wanted to show you guys a little bit of clip of the Argonauts' 83 Grey Cup win over the BC Lions at BC Place. That was the Argonauts' first Grey Cup win since 1952. So 31-year drought they ended. And the Toronto Argonauts, this is their 24th Grey Cup appearance. They're 17-6 in their 23 Grey Cup appearances. The Argonauts have won their last 6 Grey Cups they've been to, and haven't lost since '87, and they're 6-0 lifetime against Winnipeg as well. And I'm looking forward to this game. I've got the Argos winning 24-21 over Winnipeg on Sunday at 6 o'clock, 6:30 kickoff on TSN. Guys, like I do with all my podcast shows, just wanted to make an announcement here, guys. The next live with CDP Sports Talk, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet, to be announced. I am trying to get 1 or 2 shows on for next week. I'm just not sure of my guests' availability in time yet. So stay tuned to my social media pages as well. And again, Live with CDP Sports Talk is brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet, 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new GM vehicles, pre-owned GM vehicles as well. Or give them a call, 519-824-0210. Tell them Chris Palme, AKCP CDP, sent you there as well. Or just pop down there at 905 Woodlawn Road West, Guelph in the Auto Mall as well. Just also, guys, the all electric Silverado is now available for pre-order at Barry Cullen, and also the all electric Cadillac Lyric is available for pre-order as well at Barry Cullen. So I hope you guys can check them out, and I want to say thank you again to Mark Cullen for sponsoring Live with CDP Sports Talk as well. And like I do with all my shows, guys, just bear with me. I just have a lot on my tickers. 1 second, I'm just going to put that on here. And like I do, Live with CDP podcast. The audio version is downloaded to iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, LinkedIn, Stitcher, and Tuned In. So I'm on now. Live with CDP Sports Talk is now on 17 platforms, 3 video platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and the 14 audio platforms as well. I just announced, so I'm very lucky to increase my audience here. And also, guys, Live with CDP, the audio form is now being listened to in 20 countries across the world. So thank you so much. It's a great feeling to growing my audience and my brand on social media and through my platforms as well. And I want to say thank you to everybody watching this live on my YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you already haven't. And thank you to everybody watching this on Facebook Live and on Twitter as well. And as soon as I know who my guest is next week and the time they can come on, I will definitely let you know. But I've got a busy week ahead of me, guys. I'm doing some camera work tonight for Rogers TV. Guelph Storm Niagara game at 7:30 on Rogers TV. Yours truly will be behind one of the cameras. And then Saturday night, I will be doing camera work for the University of Guelph Griffins hockey team game against the Western Mustangs at the Griffins Arena at the University of Guelph Saturday night at 7:30 as well. And then Sunday is going to be lots of NFL football and also the Grey Cup again at 6 o'clock again as well. And if you guys missed the Argo Bounce live audio show last night on Twitter, Spaces with me and my co-host Nick Small, please click on my Twitter page at Christy Pame and you can listen to our show as we break down the Argos win over the Alouettes in the East Final and also preview the Grey Cup matchup against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And I want to say thank you to Nick Small for being my co-host this season on the Argo Bounce live audio show on Twitter Spaces. So I hope everybody has a great day, great weekend. Enjoy the college football games, the NFL games, and the 100 Nights Grey Cup this Sunday from Mosaic Stadium in Saskatchewan as well. And again, thank you so much to Bud Bailey, legendary reporter, columnist in Buffalo, New York, for coming on today and talking some Bills, Sabres, and Bandits as well. And please check out Bud Bailey on Twitter and also at the Buffalo Sports pages as well. He is an encyclopedia of sports knowledge, especially in the Buffalo history, in the Buffalo area as well. And he is writing a couple more books as well. So again, thanks to Bud Bailey for coming on. Again, thank you, everybody, for watching Live with CDP Sports Talk and listening to it on audio forms and brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet here in Guelph. Have a great afternoon, great weekend, everybody, and hopefully we'll see you guys next week for another edition of Live with CDP Sports Talk.